So in honour of this year's International Women in Engineering Day, we are having a chat with Lucy Wootton. And Lucy is the youngest appointed Chief Inspector at the LAA and is also the first female Chief Inspector to be appointed by the LAA. It's great to be able to have a chat with Lucy to mark this great day, International Women in Engineering Day. So hello Lucy, thank you for joining us. I thought it'd be really nice to get an understanding of how you've come to be where you are today and the journey that you would have taken to get here. So with our CAA STEM initiatives, we work very hard to show young people that there are career options within aviation. And it would be great to learn more about how you became the Chief Inspector at the Light Aircraft Association. So if we start with your school and what you did as you were going older, I know that you're heavily involved in gliding, so it'd be great to learn more about how you got into that.
Okay, so one of my earliest memories was wanting to fly. I'm not quite sure where that stemmed from, other than my dad used to like watching aviation films, so I imagine by just being around at home I would have seen that. I guess I liked the idea of the freedom that flying would give me, but I didn't think it was really possible for me, because I used to go to my local GA airfield and sit in the cafe and look at the prices for flying, and I thought I'd have to wait until I got a job and was a lot older. But then one of my dad's friends was a glider pilot, and he asked my dad if he wanted to have a go. And my dad said no, but my mum suggested, could I try it out instead? Because I'd always wanted to fly. So I went along for a trial lesson and absolutely loved it. So flew in the morning and then went back that evening because they'd got a juniors event on. And there were just lots and lots of bursaries and scholarships available for young people, and particularly females. So I just applied for as many as I could. And if I didn't get one year, I'd apply again the next year. So that got me into gliding, and then I also used further bursaries and scholarships to move over to power flying. A big part of gliding for me has been something called UK Junior Gliding. So if you're under the age of 26, then you're classed as a junior glider pilot. So I was helping at my gliding club at our big annual gliding competition called the Shellington Regionals, and one of the competitors met me there and said I should come and join in with something called the Winter Series, and these are 3 weekends throughout the winter for young pilots, glider pilots, at different sites across the UK. For example, going to Longman in Shropshire, or up to Portmoak in Scotland, or Sutton Bank in Yorkshire. And the idea is it gets young glider pilots to experience flying at new sites in gliders they wouldn't normally have access to. So there's lots of 2-seaters, so they don't have to be solo. So the guy that found me at Shellington Regionals said, oh, you should come along to one of these events. So I did, back in 2013, and I absolutely loved it, because I found this group of like-minded young people that are as interested in flying as I was. And then I got really involved with that, so I think I've only missed one of those events in the last 10 years, and bearing in mind there's 3 a year, that's quite a lot of gliding club visits. But got more into the organisation side over the last few years, so I've been helping run it rather than just turning up. But that's been a really big influence on me, was the people that I met through junior gliding, and also seeing what's possible, because the ones a bit older, you might be going on to commercial flight training or aeronautical engineering at university. So there's lots of different careers and people that you can meet and kind of run ideas off about what you might want to do in the future.
Okay, so you were 16 then when you first started gliding?
Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned scholarships and bursaries, which I think is quite important to just pick up on, because we know there's quite a few organisations now, people like the Air League, the Aeronautical Association, etc., who do run different glider or scholarships in general. But the British Gliding Association, they have lots of different scholarships, don't they?
Yes, so the British Gliding Association have a kind of charitable trust called Launchpoint, and within that they have 2 areas. So one is what was the Caroline Trust Award, and also the Ted Liss Award. So they're two areas that the BGA do. And then also you've got the other organisations like the Air League, which I was fortunate to benefit from one of their scholarships to convert my kind of glider pilot's licence over to a national private pilot's licence back in 2016. But I've also benefited from the Royal Aero Club. Trying to think of some of the others, but there's also the Honourable Company of Air Pilots. There's so many out there, and a lot of them don't get lots and lots of applications, I think, because people don't quite realise what's available to them. So there's lots to apply for, and particularly as a lady pilot, then the British Women Pilots Association also offer scholarships each year.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think what's quite nice in hearing your story about your gliding interest is that I think it's important to stress that it's not one size fits all. Just because you do gliding doesn't mean that you can't do powered flying, or just because you do powered flying doesn't mean you can't do gliding. And I suppose with all of the different financial support options available, it's important that people recognise they can have a go at all of it, I guess.
Yeah. So I started in gliding because that was the kind of accessible thing for me. It was less expensive. But then I could use some of my hours from gliding towards my private pilot's licence or national private pilot's licence. So that immediately made it less expensive for me to do that. But also the skills that you learn through gliding mean that you progress through the power flying syllabus a lot quicker, particularly your judgment skills with, say, doing a practice field landing. You're used to kind of doing that all the time, because in a glider you can't go around, so you've got to get the judgment of height and angle and that to land where you want to land right first time. So when you come to do that in a powered aircraft, you can do it so much quicker and easier. And I think it gives you a bit more confidence as to what you do if your engine did fail. And then also within gliding, you've got tug pilots. So there's two ways to get in the air, mainly with gliders. There's the winch launch, which is like a long steel cable across the airfield to a winch, and that kind of effectively catapults you up into the air to about 1,000 feet, or you get towed behind a light aircraft. So there's always the option of getting into glider towing, which is also a good way to build hours, because you're not having to pay for that flying. So once you've got yourself to being a tug pilot, then there's you can do power flying at a gliding site as well.
So you transitioned from gliding to powered flying quite seamlessly, it seems. Was that always your aim, or was it kind of where things evolved?
Where things evolved, I guess. I got into gliding because it was the kind of the affordable way, and then found I absolutely loved gliding, and I would never want to stop doing that. But then power flying gives you other options with kind of, you can, all being well, you can definitely get from one place to another, whereas gliding, if you set a cross-country task, then you've got to read the sky, and the weather can change and can make things a bit more difficult. So there's kind of different things with different challenges with each of them. So
would you say that at 16 then, when you started your gliding journey, that had a big influence on the choices you were making about what you might want to study in further education, or choices that you were thinking about for a career?
Yeah, so I went to an all-girls school, and science and maths were the subjects that I really enjoyed. But as a young lady that was good at those subjects, then it was kind of inferred that you'd go and study those at university, or you'd go and train to be a doctor and do medicine. And although engineering was mentioned, I think people just knew more about the kind of normal science subjects and medicine than they did about engineering. So I think, if I hadn't had that exposure to gliding and just helping out around the airfield with some of the glider inspections and engineering, then I probably wouldn't have realised that was an option for me. So it definitely helped in kind of opening my eyes to what was possible. Because I did end up going to study medicine for a couple of years, and although I'd passed it, I realised that wasn't what I wanted to do, and then swapped to studying aeronautical engineering. But my view on aeronautical engineering and the people I got to meet that actually worked in it definitely influenced my change to what I have ended up doing in my career that I really enjoy.
And I suppose, is it fair to say that if you hadn't have started gliding, let's say at 16, that it's more than likely you wouldn't have been able to have those conversations and exposure to looking at something like aeronautical?
Yeah, definitely. I imagine I probably would have carried on with the medicine and be practicing as a doctor now, but doing flying as more of a hobby, whereas I've turned it into my career and my hobby. And I just absolutely love working in aviation. So
when you were at university, were there few females studying, or was it not really something that was noticeable at the time?
it was definitely noticeable. So I studied aeronautical engineering at Loughborough, I think there was about 120-ish people in our year, and probably about 10 of us were female. So it was kind of easy to spot the young ladies in the lectures because, yeah, it was mainly working with guys at university. So it definitely stood out. Similar in gliding is still a heavily male-dominated sport. And junior gliding, when I first started, when I was kind of about 18 by the time I'd got into the actual formal junior gliding scene. There weren't that many of us, but definitely over the past few years, there's been more and more young ladies joining kind of junior gliding and coming to the events. But I like to think I can make a difference by organising those events and by kind of trying to push forward and show that a female can do the role, that it'll be easier for other ladies to follow me into these sort of roles in aviation.
And with your role at the Light Aircraft Association, so you are the first female chief inspector of the organisation. How have you found working within the LAA and the sector as a whole? Obviously you're younger, you'll bring a breath of fresh air, you'll bring a new way of doing things, but how have you found that as from an experience from your point of view?
Well, I've been here almost 6 months now, and I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely not without its challenges. There's some absolutely wonderful people that are just so enthusiastic about light aviation, whether they're aircraft builders or pilots. But it's great to just kind of feed off that enthusiasm and to drive me to keep trying to change and improve things in my role. I think some bits I struggle with, I obviously look quite different to previous incumbents of this role. So trying to prove that I do have the experience I need to do this role. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there, and my inspectors, that are way more experienced than I have, and they're my eyes and ears out in the field to what's going on. So I really rely on them. So yeah, I don't know it all, but I think I'm good enough to do this role. And with the right support, then hopefully I can move it forward in the right direction. I guess with the LAA, it's a lot of the work has been on paper, so in terms of the older records and that, so I'm trying to move things forward, get our records easier to use in terms of the inspectors, an index from that respect, and also kind of updating the systems as well. And then I guess a larger issue is also a lot of my inspectors are wonderfully experienced, but they are getting older now, and we will have an issue in a few years' time if I don't get some more younger inspectors, because with an ever-growing fleet, then I need to make sure we're going to have enough inspectors to keep LAA members flying, which is, after all, what we're here for, into the future. So that's a key area for me.
And how do you think you'll tackle that?
So at the moment, I'm really trying to encourage more people to apply to be LAA inspectors. I've been revamping the application process, and trying to make it more accessible to get an application in to start with, even if it turns out that I don't think a person has got enough experience yet. At least they've made that initial contact, and I can guide them to what they need to be doing next to get to the position where they're potentially going to be an LA inspector. And I think trying to find some key role models and younger inspectors out there at the moment, just to spread the word that, yeah, you can do this. There isn't an age criteria on how old you can be to be an LA inspector. Neither is there any specific criteria on what qualifications or experience you have to have. The kind of LA inspector base is quite varied. Some are licensed CAA engineers, some have studied engineering at university and had careers in aeronautical engineering that way. Others are just really enthusiastic aircraft builders that have built up their experience. So yeah, don't feel like you have to have a certain qualification to apply. It's kind of the overall picture that I'm looking at, and are you the right sort of person with the right attention to detail that's going to ask questions if you don't know, and that sort of thing.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I think lots of younger people worry that there's a set tramline of ticks and boxes that they have to do in order to be allowed or enabled to do certain roles. but from what you've talked through, it seems that actually there are lots of different routes to the end goal,
Yeah.
which I think is important to stress.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was something important for me in that after school I took a gap year and ended up working on gliders in the workshop at my gliding club. And through that experience and then gathering some more over the next 4 years, I applied to become a British Gliding Association inspector back in 2014. At that time was the youngest and the third lady to do that, but I didn't have any degree level qualifications at that point. It was purely the experience that I'd gained, and I guess what the Chief Technical Officer of the BJ saw in me when I had an interview that meant he gave me that position. And it's same here. There aren't any hard and fast rules as to what you have to have. So yeah, the kind of holistic kind of overall view is what I'm looking at rather than having certain criteria.
And how do you see the next 5 years panning out in terms of, you've mentioned obviously some things that need tidying up, sorting out in terms of paperwork and records and I suppose efficiencies and things like that would want to come in. You've mentioned the concern that I think we all have across aviation of lots of experience, but lots of people are getting older and we perhaps don't have that throughput of the next generation, I suppose, of aviation professionals, be that GA, pilots, inspectors, etc. Any other challenges that you see?
So I think another big area is training for inspectors. So every inspector has to have a formal review once every 4 years. And at the moment that's done through attending a training seminar. And we try and move those around the country so that inspectors don't have to travel too far to get to one. And that's about 20 or 30 inspectors come to those. But that's quite a bit of time, 4 years, to not kind of necessarily meet up with other inspectors and discuss kind of any issues that might be arising and how things are just changing within the industry anyway. So over the past few weeks I've been running a series of webinars for inspectors on Monday evenings covering key topics that we here at LAA headquarters sometimes find quite challenging, like correctly filling out logbooks and worksheets, or how to do the modification process or the repair process, or another one on our recently introduced changes to the permit to fly application system. So I'd like to make more use of technology for training purposes because those talks would kind of, I didn't formally register who'd attended, but in future if I look at doing that, then that can form part of a more continuous training process just to keep all the inspectors up to speed. I mean, in the gliding world, in the BGA, we operate within clubs, and there tends to be groups of inspectors together so we can bounce ideas off each other, or if something new comes out we're probably going to talk about it. With the LAA, inspectors can be quite isolated out on little farm strips by themselves, so I just want to make sure that we get them standardised and that they know exactly what their roles and responsibilities are and what we here at LAHQ can do to help them. So training, a big area for me.
And I think when you're thinking about your position now, and I think it's important for those thinking about what they'd like to do with their careers, that actually you have lots of hats. So you're a glider pilot, powered aircraft pilot, and an engineer, and that actually one can do lots of things. It's not that if you don't want to be a pilot, you have to be an engineer. If you want to be an engineer, you can't be a pilot. Actually, they're all quite integrated.
Absolutely. So I guess from gliding, I started that nearly 13 years ago. I've recently become chief flying instructor in my gliding club, so I've progressed in that. But also at the gliding club, I tow the gliders. I'm a tug pilot, so I'm in a light aircraft towing a glider. Then also I'm in the workshop inspecting aircraft as a BJ inspector, but the skills I've got there are very similar to what an LA inspector would use and ties in with the engineering side of things. So I guess I'm kind of an aviation person as a whole rather than being particularly just engineering or just flying. There's so much out there and they all kind of interlink, so you don't have to pick one over the other, no.
And I think, what is your motivation then to do all of those things?
I guess I love flying and the freedom that it gives you, kind of primarily. I think when you're flying, you've got to concentrate on that. So all the other concerns you might have at home or at work or what's going on, it's a real kind of wonderful kind of stress reliever and a way to escape from kind of the normal day-to-day life. But also I think I'm very privileged. The views that you see and the stunning scenery and the landscapes. It's just amazing that out of all the people in the UK, that you're one of those people that gets to see that. So it's just amazing to look at that. Then there's the people that you meet. I have some just wonderful friends and contacts all over the country. For example, through gliding, because you tour around, I've got people I can visit here and there, or I can ask questions about. So a wonderful network of friends. And I guess the other thing that's important to me is I want to prove that ladies can do this, and young ladies at that. So trying to make the way easier for other young ladies in the future. And it might be difficult now, but I just like to prove that, yeah, we can do that. So.
Do you feel like you're a bit of a trailblazer then, in that respect, in terms of what you've achieved thus far and your new role at the LAA?
I guess by the fact I've been the First Lady Chief Inspector, then I guess that I sort of am. And similar with some of the gliding things, like I was the youngest female to be a BJ inspector, was another thing. Or, yeah, being a young female chief flying instructor at my gliding clubs, they're all not kind of the norm. So, yeah, I guess in a way, yeah.
And what advice would you have given your younger self in terms of choices you've made or opportunities you've taken up or not, and what you would therefore share with another young budding female, sort of not sure what they might want to do within the aviation space?
I think what I would have told my younger self was not to rush. I think I was really concerned at school when people were applying for university courses that I kind of needed to fit the mould and apply when everyone else did and get onto university. And then I ended up taking a gap year and swapping courses, which was all valuable experience and I use now, but I wonder if I'd taken a more of a bit of time out and worked out really what I wanted to do, then whether I would have done that. Because I think there's quite a lot of pressure to follow the kind of what people do at different stages through school and kind of apply now and do this and do that. So I think I tell myself not to be rushed and pressured by other people. Not that they overtly pressured me, but just kind of what's expected of you, that you don't have to follow that. You need to follow what's right for you. Would be a big takeaway for me.